The story begins in 2025. The sky rips open, dropping Earth's first nasty surprise, an intergalactic kaiju. The military rolls out the heavy artillery and takes it down, but the nightmare is just starting. This wasn't a freak accident, it was a full-blown invasion. A relentless swarm of grotesque monsters starts raining from the clouds, hell-bent on erasing humanity from the map. Backed into a corner, humanity finally unites, rounding up the brightest minds to form ERDE, the Anti-Kaiju Defense Force. These elite squads score some solid hits, but the losses are heavy. Cities are reduced to rubble, dragging the war into a brutal, hopeless stalemate with no end in sight. Amidst the despair, an unlikely hero emerges, Tetsuo Yabusame. While other kids hype up kaiju sightings, Tetsuo is just chilling with a book, totally unbothered by the chaos or his classmates' games. He's just a normal, isolated kid, or so it seems. Cut to the streets, where a massive, egg-shaped robot is throwing a literal protest. This is Yukio, aka Snowman, begging for robotic rights and screaming against being used as a disposable weapon. His mad creator plans to use him as a giant sacrificial drone to defeat the kaiju. The higher-ups love this ruthless tactic, ignoring the machine's feelings, but Yukio cries out, refusing to be destroyed. Standing in the crowd, little Tetsuo hears everything, horror and empathy sparking in his eyes. Suddenly, alarms blare for a new kaiju attack. The lead scientist sees the perfect test run and orders Yukio's one-way launch. But there's a massive problem. Tetsuo is sitting inside the manual cockpit, casually reading the manual. The scientists freak out. Piloting that clunky metal beast manually is a straight-up impossible mission, requiring a literal prodigy just to make it walk. Outside, Yukio is freaking out, begging them to abort. But inside, Tetsuo is dead serious. He grabs the controls. "It's all right, Yukio. I won't let you go down." Ignoring the screaming adults, he hits the ignition. In a blinding flash of fire, the heavy robot actually lifts off. The scientists stare in pure shock, realizing this kid is a genius. The boy and his robot fly straight into the battlefield. The impossible just happened. A 9-year-old kid soloed a kaiju. The media explodes, and overnight, Tetsuo and Yukio become global superstars. Yukio is crying tears of joy because he's no longer a disposable bomb. But Tetsuo, he is absolutely terrified of the spotlight. Sure, he's out there slicing kaiju into pieces, but the public attention gives him massive anxiety. As their win streak grows, ERD announces the final battle to end this war once and for all. Fast forward 10 years, we're in deep space aboard a massive cruiser. Tetsuo is 19 now, but instead of prepping for the apocalypse, he's intensely studying a weird self-help book on how to make friends. The alarm calls him to battle. Floating through the zero-gravity halls, the mechanics cheer him on, but instead of saying something cool, he fumbles his words awkwardly and bolts. He might be humanity's savior, but socially, the guy is a total disaster. Tetsuo launches into the void and reunites with his partner. Yukio got a massive upgrade, an insanely sleek ultimate form with a skull-like face. Yukio immediately roasts Tetsuo for dodging human interaction again. Tetsuo has a full-on meltdown, screaming about how he embarrassed himself in front of the mechanics. Yukio tries to cheer him up, but Tetsuo is completely obsessed with clearing the 777 rules of true friendship from his dumb book. Captain Mist dials in to drop the ultimate master plan. They need to dive straight into the dead center of the kaiju horde, act as bait, and fire the infinity laser. We're talking a blast that wipes out everything in a 100-kilometer radius. It's an absolute suicide mission, but they accept. But the second the comms go dark, Tetsuo completely loses it again. He's gripping his head, having a full-blown meltdown because he awkwardly yelled ahoy instead of a cool, collected yes ma'am. He starts dramatically whining about how he's a total loser who wasted wasted his crucial formative teenage years slicing up monsters instead of, actually making friends and living a normal life. Yukio tries to talk some sense into him, telling him to stop overthinking every little social slip-up. But before Tetsuo can keep crying over his non-existent social life, the banter abruptly cuts off. The camera pans out into the dark void of space, revealing an endless, horrifying ocean of alien flesh. Thousands of kaiju are swimming right at them. Yukio locks in. We've got company. The scale is absolutely terrifying. Thousands of kaiju are swimming through the void like a living nightmare. Captain Mist and her crew lock in for the final phase. Yukio deploys his weapons, while Tetsuo sits in the cockpit, desperately trying to convince himself that he wants to be someone of worth. The mothership charges up the infinity laser. This is it, humanity's ultimate trump card, a single shot meant to clear this horde from the stars. They hit the trigger, and a massive, blinding blue beam erupts into the darkness, hurtling straight toward the alien swarm to cleanse the cosmos. But the triumph turns to pure horror in a split second. The beam just dies. The laser system completely crashes without warning. Captain Mist scrambles, ordering an immediate retreat and switching to Plan B, but it's too late. Every single defense system goes dark. And then, out of nowhere, a gargantuan, planet-sized kaiju lunges forward and literally shatters the front of the mothership. Glass shatters, and the crew is lost to the cold void in a sudden, tragic sequence. The flagship, humanity's last hope, is destroyed in the blink of an eye. Yukio refuses to go down without a fight. He charges in with everything he's got, unleashing the Robo 40 sword style, triggering a massive, blinding explosion that engulfs the attacking kaiju. Tetsuo holds his breath, desperately praying the attack work to salvage the situation. But when the smoke clears, absolute shock. The kaiju are completely unbothered, swarming through the burning wreckage of the cruiser. The reality hits Tetsuo like a truck. He whispers in sheer terror, "Did it fail? Did humanity just lose?" Realizing they are completely outmatched and it's the end of the line, Yukio makes a brutal call. He initiates his critical overload protocol. It's the only play left to thin the herd and buy the survivors back on Earth a fighting chance. But the craziest part of all this? Tetsuo's reaction. Instead of screaming, crying, or panicking like anyone else would, he just sits back in his chair with this eerie, heartbreaking calmness, still tightly clutching that dumb self-help book. He lets out a bitter laugh, mocking himself for leaving this world as a total loner, fading away without ever making a single human friend in his entire life. He fully embraces his fate, looking at his robot partner and telling him that honestly, he doesn't even fear the end, as long as the two of them get to face it together. As the overload countdown echoes in the cockpit, Yukio asks him if he has any final regrets. Tetsuo just smiles, closes his eyes with quiet resignation, and peacefully waits for the final fade to black. In those quiet, final moments, Tetsuo's life literally flashes before his eyes. He remembers the harsh days of his childhood, being the lonely, terrified outcast, completely paralyzed by isolation, until Yukio crashed into his life and flipped everything upside down. It suddenly hits him with a wave of warmth. Seeing normal kids make friends and live out their youth stopped hurting a long, long time ago. Why? Because Yukio was always right there, filling that void. Sure, the world sees him as a clunky, programmed machine, but to Tetsuo, he was his truest partner, his only real friend, and the one guy who never bailed on him when the war got dark. His heart swells with profound gratitude and an unexpected sense of peace. He's actually ready to die alongside his best friend. But right in the middle of that serene moment, something shatters the calm. Tetsuo notices Yukio isn't giving him a peaceful goodbye look. Instead, the robot is staring back at him with this deep, agonizing sorrow, almost like he's hiding a devastating secret. Suddenly, a blaring, blood-red warning locks down every screen in the cockpit. Manual control locked. Yukio completely played him. As Tetsuo sits there in absolute shock, the robot finally confesses his ultimate crime. With a voice heavy with regret, Yukio apologizes for stealing Tetsuo's childhood, robbing him of a normal life, and forcing him to spend his golden teenage years neck-deep in a ruthless, bloody war zone. To atone for this sin, Yukio makes his final, heartbreaking play. He forcefully activates the emergency escape pod to save his one and only friend. Tetsuo completely breaks down. He's slamming his fists against the glass, tears streaming down his face, screaming hysterically and begging the robot to abort the launch. He refuses to leave him behind. But Yukio's mind is made up, and he ejects the pod, sending Tetsuo hurtling away into the cold, endless void. As the pod drifts further and further away, a heartbroken, sobbing Tetsuo screams out a final promise. He swears he's going to live, and he's going to make 100 friends just like Yukio always wanted. Hearing those words, the robot flashes a smile of pure, absolute relief. Right before he triggers a blinding, apocalyptic explosion, unleashing a wave of energy that obliterates the entire kaiju horde in one legendary, selfless sacrifice. Pitch black. Dead, suffocating silence. Then, a sterile, emotionless automated voice cuts through the dark, announcing the deactivation of cold sleep and a successful touchdown at the destination. Tetsuo wakes up, his body incredibly stiff, freezing and groggy inside the cramped, claustrophobic escape pod. He weakly wipes the frost off the monitor to check the flight logs. And that's when the earth-shattering reality hits him like a literal freight train. He actually made it back to Earth, crash landing in Japan. But he's been knocked out in deep cryosleep for 10 whole years. An entire decade, just gone in the blink of an eye. The heavy metal hatch slowly hisses, depressurizes, and pops open. Tetsuo steps out, bracing himself, fully expecting to get hit by that familiar, blazing August heat of his hometown and the loud sounds of the city. But instead, a biting, sub-zero wind rips right through his bones. He slowly opens his eyes, and what he sees makes his blood run absolutely cold. There is no city skyline. There is no warm summer sun. There are no people. The entire world, the ruined streets, the shattered skyscrapers, the fading remnants of human civilization is completely swallowed by miles of deadly, solid ice and relentless snow stretching as far as the eye can see. Earth didn't just fall into ruin while he was asleep. It froze over entirely. He hasn't woken up to a home, but to a desolate, endless white graveyard. A literal, unforgiving snowball Earth. Tetsuo wakes up to a nightmare. His hometown, a literal popsicle. The ruins trigger a painful flashback. Yukio, his giant mech buddy, throwing his life on the line in deep space against those cosmic freaks just to save the planet. But wait, why is everything iced over? Tetsuo's brain scrambles for a logical fix. Maybe it's just Shizuoka? Yeah, the rest of the world has gotta be chillin', normally. He dives back into his drop pod, desperate for a sliver of hope from the re-entry logs. Boom, reality check. The monitor shows Earth, but it's not the blue marble anymore. It's a giant floating snowball. Tetsuo is mind blown. 10 years. I was gone for a decade and the whole damn planet went into a deep freeze? His mind spirals. What about civilization? The ERDE wiped off the map. But the real kicker? His promise. Wait, I swore I'd make friends. The crushing weight of absolute zero isolation hits him. No heat, no pulse, no people. Flashback to a warmer time, but a colder reality. Tetsuo's holed up in the school infirmary, furiously practicing kanji. Outside that door, he's the freak. The savior who skips class to play hero. Normal kids wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. He's ready to throw in the towel, completely drained. But then the doc drops the heavy truth. You're important, Tetsuo. Why? Because he's the only one built to shoulder the impossible. A lonely kid with the weight of the world on his back. Fast forward 22 hours. Tetsuo's running on fumes. He digs into the back for emergency rations, but instead he finds a ghost. A glitchy video log of Yukio. The giant mech didn't dream of premium oil or glory. His final, ultimate wish? For his pilot to go home, live a boring, happy life, and, most importantly, make a ton of friends. Hearing his dead partner's voice shatters Tetsuo, but it also sparks a fire. He wipes his tears, throws on his jacket, grabs his gear, and steps out into the wasteland. The goal is locked in. Tetsuo is going to make friends, even if he has to dig them out of the ice. Armed with his holy grail, True Friends in 777 Steps by Professor Lonely Iwaki, he reads Rule 1 Encounters. Get out of the house! He treats his pod like base camp and goes on a scavenger hunt for survivors. And jackpot! He spots a dude chilling in an excavator. Tetsuo sprints over like a golden retriever until he bumps the guy and his frozen arm snaps off like an icicle. Talk about a cold shoulder. The guy literally froze to death. Tetsuo pays his respects, hoping the old-timer didn't check out alone. But wait, he pops the hood on the excavator, the engine kicks over. No way, this baby is still alive. Tetsuo just scored a massive upgrade. A mini excavator. It's like a giant metal toy, and he's loving every second of it. He rolls up to the edge of a massive, terrifying crater. His big brain theory? The Earth's surface is a freezer, so survivors must be huddled underground. Perfect logic, right? He takes a deep breath, ready to holler down and make his first buddy. But then, the crippling social anxiety hits like a truck. Yell at total strangers? Are you insane? He curls up into a pathetic little ball on the ice, convinced not even a stray dog would want to hang out with him. While he's busy pitying himself, a massive shadow drops over him. He turns around and comes face to face with the ugliest, weirdest fish monster you've ever seen. An intergalactic kaiju. Wait, they made it to Earth too? Tetsuo goes into full panic mode. Fighting a space freak with a construction toy? Hard pass. He slams the excavator into reverse to make a clean getaway, but the ice edge just crumbles. Gravity takes the wheel, and Tetsuo plunges straight into the pitch-black abyss. He wakes up at the bottom of the crater, groggy but alive. But as the dust settles, the view leaves him breathless. Frozen skyscrapers, icy streets, streetlights trapped in glaciers. It's an entire human city perfectly preserved in a tomb of ice. The reality finally sinks in. It's the Earth. I'm home. It's a hauntingly beautiful ghost town, but Tetsuo doesn't break. He remembers his promise. He hops back into the driver's seat of his yellow digger. The world might be a popsicle, but his mission to make friends is still a go. But the welcoming committee isn't done yet. The kaiju slithers out of the ice, drooling for a snack. Tetsuo's eyes lock on the target. The scared kid is gone. The veteran pilot takes over. This is where it starts, right, Yukio? He charges, swinging the metal bucket like a bat, but it just bounces off the beast's thick hide. Time for a tactical retreat. Tetsuo analyzes the board. The monster's attacks are linear. It wants to swallow him whole, and he's out of guns. If you don't have a weapon, you engineer one. He dodges a massive lunge, positioning his machine perfectly. As the beast opens its jaws for the kill shot, the words of the ERDE doctor echo in his mind. He's important because he kills kaiju. Tetsuo forcefully snaps the bucket off the hydraulic arm, turning the excavator into a giant, jagged spear. Improvised shovel arm, Lancer! He drives the metal spike straight down the monster's throat and out its brain. First blood on Snowball Earth. The dust clears, revealing a quirky scavenging crew. We've got Iseki, a massive eye-patch-wearing tank, Ao, a cool-headed silver-haired girl, and Makoto, a tiny kid hiding inside an oversized yellow hood. They roll up on the dead kaiju, and their jaws hit the icy floor. To them, this isn't a monster, it's a literal gold mine. They're so hyped, they start tossing Ao into the air like they just won the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Tetsuo is just standing inside the beast's bloody mouth, watching this bizarre celebration. When they finally spot him covered in kaiju guts, total chaos erupts. They think he's a demon, and poor Ao gets dropped straight on her head. But for Tetsuo, this is the holy grail. Real, breathing humans! His brain frantically flips to his trusty rulebook. What's the next step? Oh right, smile! So he flashes them a grin, but drenched in blood and sleep deprived, he looks like a complete psycho. The squad is terrified, but Tetsuo? He's so overwhelmingly relieved to see his own kind that his system completely shuts down and he passes out cold. Flashback to the lonely void of space. Tetsuo is arguing with a glitching screen of his dead mech, Yukio. He's staring at rule number 2 in his manual, identify yourself, and he is already having a massive meltdown. I can't do it! It's too scary, he vents. Deep down, the kid is terrified. He firmly believes that without his giant robot, he's a nobody. Just a worthless pilot with zero social skills that no one would ever want to be around. Snap back to the present. Tetsuo's eyes flutter open. The harsh glare of space is gone, replaced by the eerie blue glow of a massive underground ice cavern. His memory kicks into gear, the Kaiju's lair, but then it hits him like a shockwave. Wait! The people! Where did they go? He jolts up, panic creeping back in, only to realize he can't move an inch. He's not a guest in this cave, he's a prisoner. The cavern is buzzing with activity. Scavengers are swarming the dead kaiju, carving it up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Meat, hide, bones, they're taking it all. Tetsuo watches from a distance, completely confused, until his main directive kicks back in. Gotta make them my friends. There's just one tiny problem. His hands are bound tight. But honestly, tying up a mecha pilot is a rookie mistake. Thanks to years of enduring bone-crushing G-forces, Tetsuo simply pops his own shoulders out of their sockets, slips the ropes, and pops them right back in. Easy money. Meanwhile, the squad leaders are celebrating. Iseki and the bespectacled Otoichi are hyping up Ao, bragging about how their underground city, the mall, is going to feast tonight. Otoichi gets super emotional, crying about how little Ao used to sob alone, which totally embarrasses her now that she's a respected leader. It's a wholesome, touching moment, completely ruined when a panicked crew member comes sprinting over, screaming his lungs out. The guy we tied up is gone! The glitch in their system is officially on the loose. The scavengers aren't just hacking away for meat, they're literally drilling for fuel. 2 workers tap into the monster's dark, warm fluids to keep their oil lamps burning. Tetsuo watches this raw survival tactic in absolute awe. On this pure white, frozen hellscape, humanity didn't just roll over and die. They adapted. They turned the very cosmic nightmares that destroyed their world into their lifeblood. He whispers to the memory of his dead mech, "These people are amazing, Yukio." But the wholesome moment violently shatters. Takamura's young son, Joji, wanders off playfully, ignoring the strict warnings. He runs straight into the danger zone, right under the massive, unstable icicles. Tetsuo spots the ice cracking above the boy. He sprints with everything he has, but the distance is too great. He won't make it. He needs an extension. Grabbing a long metal pipe, the awkward kid vanishes and the veteran mecha pilot takes over. Channeling his giant robot combat instincts into his own body, he executes the Robo One Sword style, violently shattering the lethal block of ice a split second before it crushes the kid. Takamura rushes in, angrily scolding his crying son out of pure relief, before turning to Tetsuo. The tension seems to drop until the twin workers adjust their glasses. Wait a sec, who are you? We know everyone, and we've never seen you at the mall. Tetsuo completely freezes. His mind frantically flashes back to rule number 3 in his book, identify yourself. His social anxiety spikes. He stammers, sweating bullets, unable to form a coherent sentence. The crew surrounds him, highly suspicious. Is he a spy? A surface raider? But Takamura brutally smacks his own guys down. Shut up! He saved my boy, that's all that matters. The massive, intimidating man steps forward and extends a huge, gloved hand. The name's Takamura. For the first time in an agonizing decade, Tetsuo feels the actual warmth of a human handshake. Overwhelmed, he finally speaks. I'm Tetsuo. Takamura officially welcomes him to the underground club, promising him some premium, off-the-books kaiju steaks, as long as the strict squad leader Nishimura doesn't find out. Speak of the devil, Ao, the silver-haired commander, and the massive Iseki finally arrive at the bottom of the crater. Iseki immediately points at Tetsuo, wanting to capture the intruder, but Ao, cool and calculating as always, brushes it off. Dealing with active threats to the mall is our priority. We'll get his story later. She turns her back to help harvest the beast. Big mistake. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a completely different massive kaiju bursts onto the scene, and by the looks of it, it wants to snatch up the defeated monster and our boy Tetsuo. It gently strokes the dead kaiju before completely losing its mind. Tetsuo's veteran instincts scream that something is horribly wrong. The bone structure? The erratic movements? This thing is a totally different, far more lethal breed from the galactic trash he fought up in orbit. Before anyone can even process the threat, the monster lashes out, brutally snatching up one of the scavengers in a split second. Absolute bloodbath. Tetsuo watches the massacre unfold in pure horror. His giant, heavily armed mech, Yukio, long gone. His makeshift excavator spear, busted. He is standing entirely empty-handed against a ruthless apex predator. Panic hits Tetsuo like a freight train. How the hell do I kill this thing? His brain frantically scrambles for a viable battle plan. He desperately looks over at the locals, praying that these hardened underground survivors have some sort of secret heavy weaponry or a crazy tunnel fighting tactic. Nope, they are just as terrified, frozen in sheer terror as the towering monster looms menacingly over them. The creature lets out a deafening, blood-curdling roar that physically shakes the icy cavern to its core. It's a full-scale massacre waiting to happen. The scavengers are dropping their tools in despair, realizing they just went from being the confident butchers to the main course. But Commander Ao isn't about to let another one of her people become Kaiju Chow. The monster viciously lunges for a second scavenger, but Ao fearlessly dives into the danger zone, snatching him from the jaws of certain death at the very last second. She drops to her knees, slamming her forehead against the icy ground in crushing regret for the man they just lost. But that heavy grief instantly morphs into pure, icy survival instinct. "Activate the emergency fog machines!" she screams. Massive industrial vents immediately blast thick, blinding white smoke across the crater, swallowing the raging monster whole. Ao grabs her megaphone, ordering the squad to hit the huge cargo nets and escape. Otoichi echoes the drill, and the entire crew, Iseki, Takimura, and even little Makoto, scrambles frantically up the steep ice walls like their lives depend on it. Because they absolutely do. The desperate distraction works. The crew escapes, leaving Tetsuo standing completely alone in the thick, swirling mist. Through the dense fog, the kaiju's grotesque silhouette stares him down. Tetsuo's mind turns into a chaotic war zone. His muscle memory as humanity's savior kicks in, his ingrained instincts screaming at him to fight and destroy the threat. But cold, hard reality hits him like a brick wall. Wait, what am I actually doing? The crushing truth sets in. He doesn't have Yukio anymore. He's just a regular kid in a winter coat. Fighting a monster this size barehanded is guaranteed suicide. His deeply rooted hero complex violently clashes with his raw human vulnerability. Step up, and he's dead meat. Run away, and who is left to stop this nightmare? The evacuation is absolute unfiltered chaos. Old man Takimura is clutching his kid and screaming into the freezing air for Tetsuo to stop playing hero and run. "We're out of here! Idiot! Don't stop!" But Tetsuo completely ignores him. Driven by pure instinct, he bravely charges straight at the towering monster to draw all its aggro. The kaiju swings its massive hand, trying to crush him, but Tetsuo barely dodges the lethal slam and keeps moving. The beast's wild rampage shatters huge chunks of ice, turning the cavern into a collapsing disaster zone. Seeing the kid risk his life, Takimura tries to sprint back, but the twin workers physically tackle him. Commander Ao refuses to give up. She moves in to back Tetsuo up, but tons of falling ice violently crash down, completely blocking her path and sealing her off. While the rest of the scavenger crew miraculously makes it out safely, Tetsuo's luck finally runs completely dry. The terrifying humanoid beast outmaneuvers him, snatching him up in its giant, inescapable fist. There's nowhere to run and no weapons left to fight with. The kaiju slowly raises Tetsuo toward its massive, unhinged jaws, ready to swallow the pilot whole as a quick, bloody snack. The crushing grip is agonizing, and the end looks absolutely, undeniably certain. Tetsuo stares into the abyss of the monster's mouth, but just as the jaws are about to snap shut, something crazy happens. That weird glowing chip stuck to Tetsuo's cheek suddenly lights up. it activates completely on its own, sending out a silent, high-frequency signal into the void. Tetsuo is seconds away from death when the cavern ceiling suddenly explodes. A heavily armored robot drops like a meteor, smashing the giant kaiju into bloody paste instantly. Tetsuo stares in absolute shock. As the smoke clears, the new chassis is revealed, and a familiar robotic voice calls out, "Tetsuo!" His mecha partner, Yukio, isn't dead. He's back in a bite-sized form to save the day. But how did this happen? Let's rewind the clock a few critical minutes. Miles away on the frozen surface, Tetsuo's abandoned escape pod had been silently working an absolute miracle. For the past 42 hours, the internal systems were crunching massive amounts of encrypted combat data. Then, triggered by the chip on Tetsuo's face, the dead screens glowed back to life. System boot. The high-tech navigation system pinpointed his exact underground coordinates. The primary thrusters ignited with earth-shattering force, instantly melting the surrounding glacier. With a deafening roar, the pod launched itself into the freezing sky like an orbital strike missile, tearing through the clouds to arrive at the exact perfect second to save its pilot. Let's wind the clocks back 14 years. A freaky bug-eyed kaiju is tearing through the city, and mankind's best defense? A clunky red mech piloted by our boy Tetsuo. But there's a catch. The robot's joints are completely locked up, and instead of a refreshing sports drink, Tetsuo realizes he's sipping straight-up machine oil. Turns out, the eccentric Dr. Kojika completely botched the overnight maintenance and straight-up bailed on them. As the kaiju literally starts chewing on the mech's head like a chew toy, it's purely chaotic comedy. But later, sitting in the quiet, empty hangar, that goofy beginning shifts into something incredibly wholesome. Sharing a literal can of oil, Tetsuo looks at this battered bucket of bolts and realizes something profound. This robot, Yukio, isn't just a combat tool or a machine to him. He's the very first genuine friend Tetsuo ever made in his lonely life. Fast forward to the bitter present, exactly 120 days since the absolute hell of the final battle. The vibe is heavy, almost suffocating. Tetsuo is drifting aimlessly in a space pod, desperately reading a pathetic self-help book on how to make friends, while his own onboard AI relentlessly roasts him. But behind the deadpan comedy, Tetsuo is psychologically shattered. We get a glimpse of the horrifying truth. Yukio, with his armor shattered and sparking, shielding Tetsuo from a swarm of terrifying intergalactic kaijus. He gave up his own life so his pilot could survive. Because of that trauma, Tetsuo carries a massive, suffocating black hole right in the center of his chest. It's a psychological wound that refuses to heal, a phantom pain dragging him down into the abyss. He was fully convinced that this soul-crushing grief was just his permanent reality. But then, an absolute miracle on the frozen wasteland. Tetsuo snaps his head up, his eyes wide with utter disbelief. Hovering over him isn't some new threat, but a massive, newly upgraded mech. It's Yukio, rocking a sleek, white, spherical body and his iconic red scarf. But before they can even process the moment, a grotesque, half-severed green kaiju launches a brutal sneak attack. The second the monster strikes, Yukio smoothly evades the attack and claps back with a massive, devastating counterattack. Right after that, we get the epic reveal. Right at the exact millisecond of his self-destruction, Yukio managed to upload his core personality data directly into Tetsuo's pod. Now, completely downloaded into his fresh combat shell, he looks down and drops the coldest yet warmest line, "I'm home." Sitting in the massive palm of his giant metallic buddy, Tetsuo completely breaks down. The tears stream down his face, pure, unfiltered emotional catharsis. "Welcome back, Yukio," he sobs out. But hold on, wipe those tears. The battlefield isn't secure yet. That green kaiju? It's still moving, flashing a totally psychotic grin. Down on the ground, Ao, the muscular Sagami, and the rest of the survivors are absolutely terrified. The reunion is legendary, but the war just got complicated. The green kaiju is livid, its back rippling with rage. Yukio, hovering in his sleek spherical body, acts like a total boss, declaring that any monster crossing them is signing its death warrant, even without decent weapons. Wait, what? Sitting in the mech's giant hand, Tetsuo does a double take. Yukio deadpans the harsh reality. This pristine white body? It's literally just an emergency escape pod with arms and legs slapped on. Spec-wise, it's worse than a bare-bones prototype. Tetsuo is speechless, but Yukio remains cheerfully optimistic. Meanwhile, the survivors, including the calm-faced Ao and the massive Sagami, watch in terror. Down below, the kaiju digs its claws into the ice. It's locking into its predation posture, a terrifying stance for a lethal strike. Yukio screams a warning before the beast launches itself, shattering the ice like a localized earthquake. The shockwave sends massive ice chunks flying. When the dust settles, the kaiju emerges, looking completely unhinged with a psychotic tongue-wagging grin. Yukio calculates the sheer kinetic force. If that hit them, they'd be flattened into scrap metal. Tetsuo realizes the horrifying truth. This thing can bombard them with rapid-fire blows. If they wait to dodge, they're dead. On the cliffs, Sagami and the crew are holding their breath. But suddenly, the guy with the glasses starts crying tears of joy. He tells the panicked crowd they're completely fine. Why? Because the mechanics have seen this exact scenario before. As the monstrous kaiju lunges forward like a heat-seeking missile, Tetsuo doesn't flinch. He's locked in. In a split-second flashback to 14 years ago, we see the clunky red mech facing a similar beast. Now, Tetsuo and Yukio are perfectly synced. As the kaiju charges at blinding speed, Tetsuo's eyes narrow with deadly focus. Robo One-Sword style! Diablo de Polvo! Yukio draws a blazing blue energy blade, spins like a lethal top, and slices straight through the monster. Everything freezes. Then, the kaiju's upper half cleanly slides off in a massive geyser of blood. An absolute flawless victory. The mechanics and the colossal Sagami erupt into wild cheers. Even the usually calm Ao cracks an amazed smile. She breaks down the tactical genius. Tetsuo saw the monster's speed and used a spinning slash to hijack its own momentum, decapitating it cleanly. Pure combat hype. But just as they celebrate, the camera pulls back 100 kilometers to the icy ruins of Tokyo. Waiting in the frozen abyss, sitting casually on a jagged ice spire, is a terrifying humanoid kaiju with a sinister, jagged smile. The real war on Snowball Earth has just begun. Tetsuo and his giant robot buddy Yukio are finally catching a break. They're dragging a massive kaiju carcass across the frozen wasteland straight to the mall, humanity's last safe zone. Tetsuo is hyped for civilization, while silver-haired Ao just chills on a mountain of luggage. But reality hits Tetsuo hard. It only took 10 years for Earth to become a giant snowball. Reflecting on his solo crash landing, the isolation breaks him. He bursts into a dramatic sob session, clinging to Yukio. "I'm so glad you're alive," he bawls. Yukio tries playing the tough guy, complaining about the waterworks, but let's be real, the giant mech is a softie. Seconds later, Yukio is leaking robot tears right alongside him. In the background, the militia crew is just hyped they won't starve. Suddenly, Ao pops up out of nowhere. She hits Tetsuo with the ultimate doomsday flex, a pristine can of gold pineapple slices. In this frozen hell, sugar is a myth, making this an ultra-rare artifact. Ao cracks it open and the sweet aroma hits her. Her eyes literally turn into glowing pink hearts. Tetsuo, sensing the heavy aura of this fruit, sweats bullets. Is it really okay for me to take this? Tetsuo tries to back out, but Ao is fighting demons. Trembling, she orders him to eat it now before she loses her mind. She turns her back, stating her code. They saved her life, so she must repay them with something equally precious. Yep, she values canned fruit like her own soul. Figuring it's rude to decline, Tetsuo takes a bite. Instantly, Ao lets out a soul-crushing scream. Tetsuo panics, offering to spit it out, but Ao just mourns that the world's pineapple supply just dropped. Yukio awkwardly suggests sharing it. The The sugar rush is real. The pineapple was so mind-blowing that Ao accidentally thanks the gods instead of saying grace. But then the mood shifts. The real reason she shared the holy grail of fruit was to drop intel. She formally introduces herself. Ao Nogi. Tetsuo excitedly gives his name, geeking out over a proper intro. Ignoring Yukio's snarky comments, Ao stares Tetsuo down with absolute focus. Should I tell you what happened 10 years ago? She asks. The playful vibe dies instantly. Tetsuo's eyes widen. The biggest mystery of the Snowball Earth is about to unfold. 10 years ago, Japan. It started like any normal summer beach day, but then it showed up. Not from space, but rising from the ocean. A humanoid kaiju with a nightmare-inducing smile, flanked by massive floating white orbs. The military tried to step in, thinking it was just another Tuesday, but they didn't even get to fire a single shot. The temperature plummeted. In a flash, those white spheres multiplied globally. Then, an absolute zero blizzard wiped the map clean. No epic battles, no heroic last stands, just an instant, unforgiving deep freeze that turned humanity into ice sculptures in a heartbeat. Ever since that day, the planet hasn't warmed up a single degree. This wasn't a war, it was an execution. Back in the present, Tetsuo is mind blown. One single kaiju did all this right after they left? But wait, what about ERDE, the ultimate anti-kaiju defense force? Ao lays down the harsh truth. The world's greatest defenders got caught completely off guard. They were wiped out in the very first freeze. But here's the twist. Ao drops a massive rumor. Whispers say there's still an ERDE remnant out there holding down a mall, tangled in some shady power struggles, which means Tetsuo might not be the last of his squad. There's still a glimmer of hope that some of his comrades are breathing out there in the frozen wasteland. Fast forward, they finally arrive. Hidden deep inside a massive ice canyon is a junior high school? Welcome to Mishima Mall. Tetsuo is totally stoked. Inside, the rumor mill is spinning out of control. ERDE is back. We won the war. Nope, just the savior and his giant robot. But man, the reception is insane. A massive crowd of survivors storms out, cheering their heads off. They're welcoming them home. Tetsuo, totally overwhelmed by the love, starts tearing up again. He strikes the goofiest, most awkward victory pose ever, making Yukio physically cringe. But hey, for the first time in 10 years, he actually feels like a hero. Inside, Ao breaks down how this icy utopia works. 200 people surviving together. You got the scavengers raiding the outside, the builders keeping the lights on, and the tech guys who are currently drooling over Yukio. And Ao, she casually drops that she's the chief of accounting. Yeah, plot twist. But the wholesome tour gets cut short. Turns out, Ao was totally sneaking out, and the elders are furious. That's when the giant, intimidating Takamura steps up. He volunteers to look after Tetsuo. With a dead serious glare, he leans in. First off, I'll show you the way to that place. Tetsuo sweats bullets. What place? And why does it sound like a total trap? Tetsuo expects a serious debriefing, but instead, Takamura drags him to a literal hot spring. After 10 years of freezing in space, the boiling water feels like an absolute dream, but as he's soaking, reality creeps back in. Why is this mall so warm when the rest of the planet is an icebox? There's zero snow around it. Takamura, looking intimidating as ever, tells Tetsuo to clear his head. Then, he drops a massive bombshell. Buried right underneath Mishima Mall is a kaiju. Tetsuo instantly freaks out, ready to bolt, but Takamura calms him down. It's safe. He tells Tetsuo to listen closely because it's time to hear the origin story of the kaiju tamer who saved them all. Flashback, 11 months after the Great Freeze. It's a literal death march. The survivors look like walking corpses, trudging through the relentless blizzard. They finally spot a ruined school to use as shelter, but their hopes are instantly crushed. A kaiju has already claimed it as its territory. Takamura's voiceover paints a grim picture. They were pushed to the absolute edge, barely surviving, running from one frozen ruin to the next. Then came the darkest moment of all. Starving and out of food, they found a kaiju carcass. carcass. Desperation took over, and they ate its alien flesh. It was a brutal game of Russian roulette. Half of them died horrific deaths, their human bodies rejecting the meat. Only the lucky ones adapted and survived. Those who refused to eat, they simply froze to death in the snow. The nightmare isn't over. Suddenly, the group is ambushed and cornered by two terrifying kaiju. Panic erupts. Everyone is screaming to run, but their legs are frozen in fear. But then, a bizarre miracle happens. The monsters completely ignore the humans and lock onto each other for a turf war. Amidst the chaos, the white-haired teacher Kinoe realizes something horrifying. He accidentally dropped little Ao. We see her tiny body lying unconscious in the unforgiving snow. Takamura snaps. He roars and tries to charge out into the crossfire to save her, but the other survivors tackle him to the ice. They pin him down, screaming that it's a suicide mission. Worse, they tell him Ao is a lost cause. She ate the kaiju meat, and it's only a matter of time before she coughs up blood and dies like the others. Takamura fights like a wild animal, tears in his eyes, screaming that abandoning a child strips away their humanity. But the broken crowd yells back, there are no saviors anymore. To survive this hell, you have to leave the weak behind. Takimura's desperate scream echoes through the frozen canyon, but it's too late. Ao is left behind in the snow. As she lies freezing, her hair turning stark white, a chilling voice echoes inside her head. Abandoned, left for dead. Ao realizes the horrifying truth. It's the voice of the kaiju meat she just ate. The entity cruelly confirms she's going to be devoured. But Ao is just a kid. Her inner monologue is absolutely heartbreaking. She doesn't want to die out here. She wants to wear a graduation uniform, fall in love, compete in the Olympics. She doesn't want her final meal to be monster flesh. She just wants warm pancakes. Tears streaming, she admits the raw truth. I'm scared. I'm so scared. The alien entity feeds on her dread. Yes, that's it. Fear, despair, and pure hatred for the humans who ditched you. It thinks it has human nature all figured out. But Ao hits it with a massive curveball. Hatred? No, I actually feel a lot of love for them. The entity's brain literally short circuits. Incomprehensible. Are all humans like this? Ao remembers the silent sacrifices, adults sharing their scarce food with kids, the cowardly teacher risking everything to protect them, and tough men crying their eyes out over lost lives. She doesn't hate them for leaving her behind. She loves them, and she desperately wants to protect them. The tension hits its boiling point as a massive aquatic green kaiju approaches to finish the job. But instead of laying down to die, Ao gets up on her feet. Her glare is pure, unfiltered rage. She screams right at the giant beast. There is no savior coming, but you still have me. She vows to tear the monster to shreds, declaring at the top of her lungs that humanity will win. The green kaiju opens its massive jaws to eat her, but right before it snaps shut, a small white bird kaiju, the entity she connected with, intercepts and attacks. Suddenly, the bird's legs burst into fierce flames. The entity has made its choice. A tiny human wants to protect them all? Now that is interesting. Boom! An explosion of pure fire. The white bird transforms into a legendary phoenix-like kaiju. Ao stands there, a mystical blue flame glowing on her head. The survivors watch in absolute shock. She connected with the monster. The kaiju tamer is born. The firebird strikes a deal. Give me knowledge, and I'll use this newfound power to protect your people, and I'll keep this frozen wasteland warm. Cut to the present. Tetsuo is completely speechless. The legend of the warm mall is real. Out in the freezing wasteland of a frozen Tokyo, the anti-kaiju defense force is on high alert. Commander Iseki and his squad, Riko and Otoichi, are scouting a massive, creepy humanoid kaiju chilling on the frozen Tokyo Tower. It hasn't moved an inch, but taking it down is an absolute priority if they want to save the world. The problem? It's too damn cold to get close without a massive heat source. But before they can formulate a solid plan, the humanoid spots them. Suddenly, the ice shatters beneath them as three massive, terrifying, red worm-like kaiju burst out of the frozen city. They're the humanoid's personal bodyguard. With nowhere to run, Otoichi steps up, completely unfazed. He hypes himself up, representing the ERDE squad, ready to show these giant worms what humanity's defense force is really made of. Meanwhile, deep inside the underground refuge of Mishima Mall, Tetsuo and Io are checking out the very heat source the military desperately needs, a gigantic, flaming bird kaiju. Io casually drops some wild lore. When this beast first crashed onto Earth, it was just a mindless monster, but after connecting with Io's mind, it evolved, gaining intelligence and taking this fiery bird form. The best part? This terrifying creature is actually a massive nerd. Since it burns up all its energy just keeping the entire mall from freezing over, it can't move. So, in exchange for not letting everyone freeze to death, it demands one thing: a daily story time. Io reads to it every single day, and the giant bird even named itself Land of Men after its favorite book. Talk about a fiery bookworm. Back in the living quarters, Tetsuo gets the best news of his life. An older man named Joji officially welcomes him into the Takamura family. Tetsuo is hyped, until he accidentally walks in on Joji's daughter Hagane half naked. Pure chaos erupts. Hagane grabs a massive metal wrench, threatening to literally beat the memory out of his skull. Tetsuo's brain instantly hits the emergency shutoff, and he passes out cold. When he finally wakes up, Hagane is playing nice, fanning him and handing over a letter from her dad. It's Tetsuo's first ever letter. Joji asks Tetsuo to protect Hagane, mentioning she's frail and grieving her late mother. But the moment Hagane reads between the lines, her true colors show. Realizing she has a powerful savior at her absolute beck and call, she flashes a devious smirk and drags a completely clueless Tetsuo out for a tour of the mall. Hagane drags Tetsuo to her favorite spot in the whole mall, her late mother's top secret R&D workshop. Her mom was a big deal in the tech department, and now Hagane uses this place on the down low. She proudly shows off her latest creation, a cute little robot turtle. But she didn't just bring Tetsuo here to flex. Pulling back a tarp, she reveals a mysterious new project and asks for his expert savior's opinion. Is the thing she's building actually effective and useful? Tetsuo is caught completely off guard, left speechless. Cut to the freezing wasteland. Commander Iseki, Riko, and Otoichi are making a badass getaway riding a severed kaiju eyeball. They barely made it out, but Iseki isn't sweating it. They got what they needed. To take down the humanoid kaiju, they absolutely need that flaming bird kaiju from Mishima Mall. Suddenly, Otoichi drops a massive bombshell. Artemis just confirmed Tetsuo Yabusame has returned from deep space. He's alive, and he brought a new robot with him. Iseki's one good eye goes wide with a sinister realization. He declares a new, ruthless game plan. They aren't just going to take the heat kaiju, they are going to hijack Tetsuo's new machine too. Standing tall against the blizzard, Iseki proclaims that their fallen salvation has risen from the ashes, and the anti-kaiju defense force will be the ones to save the world. Back at the mall, Joji bursts through the door with groceries, ready for dinner. Tetsuo is slumped over, absolutely drained after Hagane dragged him on an exhausting tour of every single inch of the mall. But the vibe instantly shifts when it's time to eat. They boil a massive hot pot using a literal kaiju heated stone. Joji gives Tetsuo a quick safety warning. Whatever you do, do not eat the kaiju meat because it's too risky. After a heartfelt itadakimasu, Tetsuo takes his first bite. The food is incredible, the warmth is real, and for the first time, Tetsuo feels like he actually belongs to a family. Later that night, the room is quiet, but Tetsuo is too hyped to sleep. Tears of pure joy stream down his face as he checks off 2 more boxes on his wild 777 steps to making friends list. Eating at the same table and sleeping on the floor together. He happily whispers to a snoozing Yukio that he'll remember this perfect day forever. But right next to him, the reality is much darker. Hagane is tossing in her sleep, tears rolling down her cheeks. She's trapped in a nightmare, reliving the horrific, bloody moment a massive lizard kaiju devoured her mother right in front of her in the freezing wasteland. The trauma is still fresh, and it's haunting her. Deep in an icy crater, a massive lizard kaiju devours a grotesque pile of purple flesh. Slurping down its meal, it telepathically groans, "That was tasty. I want to devour humans." But this beast isn't alone. Connecting through the mind link, Rico fiercely commands it to shut its mouth and remember its mission. The monster completely ignores her, stuffing its face with more meat, whining for more. Rico is absolutely fuming. This rogue kaiju, Artemis, is completely ignoring her orders, stubbornly camping out at Mishima Mall. But Otoichi, adjusting his glasses, stays cool. He points out this beast is special. It can telepathically speak human language over massive distances. Having it parked at the mall is actually a huge tactical advantage. Stepping up, Commander Iseki grins wickedly. He realizes they've just hit the ultimate jackpot. Mishima Mall has 200 refugees, Tetsuo's brand new machine, and Tetsuo himself. Rico coldly asks if they should wipe the place out. Iseki's response? A ruthless yes. He orders them to use the civilians as hostages and slaughter them all. Grinning like a madman, Iseki compares them to the big bad wolf, ready to blow down the refugees' little straw house. The squad moves out. Fast forward 1 week at the mall's secret workshop. Tetsuo and Hagane just finished building a stash of heavy-duty explosive weapons. Hagane lets out a huge sigh of relief, admitting she couldn't sleep a wink while handling live gunpowder. Curious, Tetsuo asks why she's even building these. Instead of answering, Hagane asks him to crouch down. The second he does, she gently pats his head, calling it a ritual. And just like that, Tetsuo's brain short-circuits again and he passes out cold. Watching him flop, Hagane feels a bittersweet wave of nostalgia. She remembers her late mother used to pat her head the exact same way. Later at dinner, the vibe is super wholesome. Joji mentions it's been 45 days since Hagane's mom passed away. Looking at the table, Hagane realizes Tetsuo is sitting in her mom's empty chair, yet somehow it feels perfectly natural. But that warm feeling is violently shattered by a sudden brutal flashback. The sickening sound of her mother being chewed into meat by a giant lizard kaiju. That night, Tetsuo wakes up for a bathroom break and finds another letter on his bed. His excitement drops the second he reads Hagane's words. "Thank you for helping me. My mother was killed by a kaiju that devoured her." Out in the freezing wasteland, Hagane walks completely alone, knowing the others would have stopped her. Suddenly, a massive shadow swallows her. The exact giant lizard kaiju that ate her mom silently creeps up right behind her, jaws wide open. Hagane whispers she has a terrible feeling. Standing frozen in the icy wasteland, Hagane stares straight into the jaws of the massive lizard kaiju that ate her mom. The beast drools, thinking it just scored a free meal. But Hagane isn't a helpless victim. She's the bait. The savage kaiju lunges to devour her, but she flawlessly dodges the attack thanks to her custom ERDE auto hover boots, a masterpiece she developed with Tetsuo. Now, it's payback time. A quick flashback shows Tetsuo dropping some vital kaiju logic. These monsters are insanely heat resistant and heal ridiculously fast, so a basic bomb won't cut it. Hagane's brilliant solution? A weapon designed for pure, unadulterated torture. Hagane hoists a massive, heavy-duty rocket launcher onto her shoulder, pulls the trigger, and blasts the rocket straight down the beast's throat. The projectile explodes in brutal stages, unleashing countless barbed metal spikes that dig deep into its vocal cords and gullet. Every single time the monster tries to make a sound or swallow, it triggers agonizing, paralyzing pain. It will never, ever eat again. Watching the beast thrash in its own blood, the adrenaline fades, leaving Hagane on her knees, crying out for her lost mother. But a wounded animal is dangerous. Blinded by rage, the bleeding kaiju lunges at Hagane with lightning speed for one final strike. Just as it attacks, the ice erupts. Yukio, piloted by Tetsuo, blasts out. In a flash, he executes a flawless two-sword style maneuver, cleanly slicing the kaiju's arm right off. Yukio glares at the kaiju in pure terror as the beast kicks up a massive cloud of smoke and violently burrows underground to escape. Tetsuo frantically runs over to check on Hagane, but the total idiot trips right over the rocket launcher and faceplants straight onto her. They both end up bawling their eyes out, just relieved she's alive and her mom's avenged. Even Yukio the giant robot gets all emotional. But suddenly, Yukio's sensors go off. He senses something horribly wrong. They need to get out of there, fast. However, this epic victory is exactly what the enemy was waiting for. 5 kilometers away, the ruthless anti-kaiju defense force has been watching the entire fight unfold. Commander Iseki smirks, realizing Yukio and Tetsuo are completely distracted and sitting right in their crosshairs. It's the perfect setup. Without a single second of hesitation, Iseki coldly gives the order to fire. Let's rewind the clock 19 years back to 2025, the exact day the alien kaiju crashed the party and turned Earth into an absolute war zone. To fight back and survive, the Air Day organization was born. Enter Iseki Sagami, a towering, muscle-bound, absolute tank of a man rocking an eye patch, volunteering straight for the bloody front lines. From day one, he proves he's not just a soldier, he's a total beast. During target practice, while most green recruits sweat bullets just to hit a measly 70% mark, Sagami lands terrifyingly accurate kill shots without breaking a single sweat. His squad is completely floored. One rookie whispers in the background that having a freak of nature like him around just makes the rest of them look like total scrubs playing dress-up. Riding the momentum of his crazy skills and relentless grind, Sagami skyrockets up the Air Day ranks. Fast forward to one pitch-black, terrifying night. He rallies his squad with a grim order. They must drop a massive approaching kaiju right now, no matter the cost. It absolutely cannot breach the city limits. Suddenly, things go south. The kaiju goes completely berserk, wildly wrecking everything in its catastrophic path. While the regular grunts panic and run for their lives, Sagami stands his ground like an immovable mountain. With ice in his veins, he aims his heavy cannon and unleashes one single massive blast that completely obliterates the beast. The surviving soldiers rally around him in pure awe. They start chanting his name, crowning him their undisputed savior. Sagami absolutely eats it all up, soaking in every drop of that hard-earned glory. But that sweet honeymoon phase ends brutally fast. The entire news cycle flips upside down over a scrawny 9-year-old kid named Tetsuo. Out of absolutely nowhere, this pint-sized unknown jumps into the cockpit of a massive mech and takes down a kaiju entirely on his own. Overnight, Tetsuo completely blows up on social media, with the public going wild and branding him the true savior. Hearing that title completely pisses Sagami off. His blood boils even hotter when he gets wind that top brass is drastically cutting troop numbers, throwing all their faith behind these mechs for cleaner results. Desperate to prove them wrong, Sagami jumps into a mech simulator to see what the annoying hype is about. He hates it. To him, the machine's response time is painfully sluggish, lacking the raw instinct of a real soldier. Meanwhile, Tetsuo just keeps dominating every single headline, effortlessly crushing kaiju left and right with minimal collateral damage, and the public worships the ground he walks on. Sagami, keeping his usual stone-cold look, is secretly seething. To him, this kid is nothing but a massive, infuriating thorn in his side. All hell breaks loose when the sirens start screaming. 3 massive kaiju drop in simultaneously, with the whole swarm right behind them. Sagami's squad gets completely wiped out and forced to retreat, but the man himself, he stands his ground like an absolute savage. Staring death right in the face, he unloads his weapon, screaming at the top of his lungs, "I am the savior of this world." He's totally prepared to go out in a blazing blaze of glory. But then, boom. Out of nowhere, Tetsuo's crashes the party, effortlessly wiping out the kaiju and saving his life. Instead of being grateful, Sagami is absolutely blinded by pure toxic rage. Humiliated, he actually aims his heavy gun right at Tetsuo's cockpit. Lucky for the kid, the chamber is dead empty. Sagami just stands there, lowering his weapon, boiling with a terrifying hatred. From that exact moment, Sagami switches his entire game plan. He becomes obsessed with power, climbing the military ranks at breakneck speed. The second he gets enough pull, he pitches his master plan plan to the High Command. It is absolute suicide to leave the fate of humanity in the hands of one single kid. He convinces them to let him handpick and train a squad of gifted children to be the real saviors. By 2030, his dream becomes a reality. He officially forms the elite child soldier unit known as V-Day, brainwashing them to believe they are Tetsuo's ultimate replacements. But fate has a sick sense of humor. Fast forward to 2034, the devastating Great Freeze hits the Earth. By 2035, Tetsuo and the Air Day organization completely fail their final desperate battle. In the freezing aftermath, the name V-Day is totally wiped from history, completely forgotten by the world. But here is the crazy twist. Sagami and his child soldiers actually survive that apocalyptic deep freeze, crawling out of the ice even stronger and infinitely more ruthless. When intel reaches Sagami that Tetsuo has returned from space, he loses his mind, cursing the kid as a stubborn cockroach that just refuses to die. He officially declares that his squad will exterminate the fire kaiju and Tetsuo, because in his eyes, they are the only true saviors. Snap back to the present day. The cute, round AI mech Yukio suddenly starts panicking. Its glowing yellow eyes flash as it frantically begs Tetsuo to get inside the cockpit, sensing an incoming catastrophe. But it's a split second too late. One of Sagami's snipers fires a devastating kaiju tech weapon. The beam rips right through the air and blasts Yukio, literally blowing half of its white spherical body into absolute pieces. Tetsuo screams in pure horror, sprinting toward his broken friend. Miles away, Sagami and his squad are throwing a twisted celebration. Sagami smirks, realizing they just hit the ultimate jackpot. Tetsuo is caught out in the open, and his overpowered mech is completely wrecked. Despite the sick celebration, one girl in the squad isn't smiling. Yuma, the pink-haired sniper, is absolutely devastated. Sagami tries to hype her up, giving her a smooth "good job, Yuma," but she is totally crushed. Her personal kaiju Artemis was destroyed in the attack, and now she feels completely useless. But Sagami? He is a master manipulator, rocking a seriously twisted psycho charisma. He leans in and hits her with the smoothest line. "Don't sweat it, just stand behind me and watch the show." Instantly, she eats it up, her mood doing a complete 180. Feeling totally invincible, Sagami declares that the spark of salvation is finally lit. He vows to end Tetsuo's life with his own bare hands, mockingly laughing that the kid is probably out there bawling his eyes out right now over his broken toy. Oh, how dead wrong he is. Out of absolutely nowhere, Tetsuo and Yukio crash the party, moving at blinding speed. In a flash of steel, they slice clean through a massive reindeer kaiju's horn, dealing terrifying damage. Sagami's jaw drops. He cannot compute how they recovered so insanely fast. But the shocks just keep coming. Yukio's sensors pick up something crazy. There are actual humans, kaiju tamers, standing right on top of the beasts. Realizing the stakes, the AI makes a split-second tactical choice. He decides to neutralize the kaiju without killing the human riders, unleashing his ultimate six swords technique, despite only holding a single blade. It's a breathtaking, high-speed assault. Tetsuo goes all in for a devastating finishing blow, but the attack hits dead air. Boom. The kaiju activates a literal cheat code, pure teleportation, moving Sagami's entire squad safely out of the strike zone. Tetsuo is left completely frozen, gasping, "Impossible." As Tetsuo stands there shell-shocked, Sagami picks up on Yukio's mechanical voice and immediately pieces together that the boy and the machine have somehow swapped bodies. Tetsuo is utterly baffled. How on earth do these kaiju have literal superpowers like teleportation or the insane fire abilities of that girl Ao? Sagami smirks and drops a massive lore bomb. He explains that humans only use 10% of their brains, unlocking the rest grants superhuman abilities. But there is a massive catch. The brain is just software. To run that kind of crazy power, you need heavy-duty hardware, and a fragile human body would literally tear itself apart. The sick, twisted solution? Hook up a genius human brain to an ultra-adaptable kaiju body body. The humans become remote brains, unlocking the monster's dormant god-tier powers. Tetsuo is hit with pure, suffocating horror, realizing these people are using kaiju as living superweapons. Hagane snaps, screaming at them, demanding to know who the hell they are. Sagami and his cult just laugh it off. Hagane realizes it doesn't even matter who they are. The grim reality is staring them right in the face. It is 5 empowered humans and 5 super kaiju against a single heavily damaged Yukio. Meanwhile, back at the mall, Ao, our silver-haired girl, is happily spinning around in a chair, totally oblivious, while her friends beg her to take things seriously. Suddenly, she spots something bizarre in the sky. Cut back to the frozen wasteland. Sagami is hyping himself up, swearing on his life his elite squad will never lose to Tetsuo. He violently shifts his game plan. Screw them all, put all firepower into exterminating Tetsuo right here, right now. Hagane is absolutely terrified, freezing up as she realizes Tetsuo has gone dead silent. The situation feels completely hopeless. But Tetsuo? He does the only thing he knows how to do. He drops straight into a lethal battle stance. That single, subtle hand movement from Tetsuo, syncing up with Yukio, sends a primal shockwave of pure terror straight down Sagami's spine. His survival instincts kick into overdrive. He immediately barks at his bespectacled right-hand man, Otoichi, screaming at him to signal all kaiju tamers, "Execute Code Orange!" Otoichi is utterly stunned. That code is strictly reserved for absolute apocalyptic disasters. Still, he obeys, using his kaiju's unique power to shoot glowing orange cards to the rest of the squad. One cocky member is totally confused, thinking this busted mech is a free kill. Tetsuo braces himself for the ultimate clash, muscles tense, waiting for the impact, but he is left totally baffled. The enemies just sprint right past him, completely ignoring him. Putting the mission above their pride, the squad pulls off a massive tactical retreat. In a flash, the entire team teleports out of the danger zone, everyone except Sagami. With bone-chilling calmness, he admits he probably could have won that fight, but it would have cost him at least 3 kaiju. He is a numbers guy, and he never makes a bad bet. Then, he hits Tetsuo with a psychological gut punch. "Where exactly do you think my kaiju are heading right now?" The crushing realization hits our heroes like a freight train. Sagami reveals his monsters are rushing straight for Mishima Mall, hitting their target in exactly 4 to 5 minutes. He starts a morbid countdown, brutally mocking Tetsuo for standing there frozen for the last 10 seconds, dubbing him the hesitant warrior. Pushed past his limit, Yukio snaps. He tells Sagami to get the hell out of his way and charges in, but the poor broken AI is instantly swatted away, sent flying into the freezing snow with a single humiliating blow. With a sinister smirk, Sagami leaves them a parting gift, his personal nightmarish kaiju named Hercules, strictly ordered to crush them and stall them from saving the mall. Yukio is critically damaged, plummeting through the sky while chased by a terrifying centaur beast. Tetsuo realizes this is the 6th kaiju, and it's overwhelmingly fast. Enter the mastermind, Iseki Sagami. Standing tall on a colossal snake-like kaiju alongside Konoe and Uzuki, the eye-patch-wearing commander is absolutely loving this. He proudly introduces his ultimate weapon, Hercules. Sagami maliciously mocks Tetsuo, calling him a washed-up savior who returned to this frozen wasteland 10 years too late. Hercules lunges instantly. Yukio barely deploys a blue energy shield to block a devastating beam. Inside the cockpit, Tetsuo is sweating bullets, struggling to keep up with the sheer velocity. Realizing they're losing ground, he desperately yells at Yukio to make a move. The reliable robotic wingman preps a counterattack. Time for tech magic. Yukio activates hidden feature number 2, the jump seat. A side panel opens for Hagane. We get a wholesome flashback of Tetsuo designing Yukio's giant red form. Why add a jump seat? Because optimistic Tetsuo believed he might make friends during his space voyage and invite them inside. Cut back to the present and Tetsuo is bawling his eyes out. After 14 long years, he finally gets to use that seat with an actual friend. Hagane is totally weirded out. To make it funnier, the system reveals this seat transforms into 6 setups, including a takoyaki grill and a board game station. Peak anime ridiculousness in a death match. Hagane buckles up as Hercules unleashes a massive blade attack. Yukio masterfully dodges mid-air, leaving the enemy commanders, including Riko Akagi, completely stunned. Yukio goes full samurai, launching his Robo 3-sword style Katamatsu strike. He charges straight at Hercules with overwhelming force. Their devastating strike connects, leaving everyone absolutely floored by their lethal power. But the hype is cut short. Yukio mutters an apology right before his back detonates. He took a massive hit from Hercules during the clash. While Sagami arrogantly flexes his muscles, it hits Tetsuo and Yukio like a freight train. They finally realize just how absurdly overpowered this kaiju truly is. The panic is real. Inside the cockpit, Hagane breaks down in tears, crushed by her own helplessness. But through her tears, she drops a terrifying truth bomb on Tetsuo. This ambush isn't random. The enemy is attacking with a calculated plan, choosing their exact strike time with surgical precision. 3 a.m. Why 3 a.m.? While we see Ao, Izumi, and the crew out in their snowcat exploring the wasteland and joking under the crescent moon, Hagane explains the fatal flaw to Tetsuo. This is the exact time Ao is away from the mall, and that's exactly what the enemy was waiting for. Tetsuo connects the terrifying dots. Without Ao, the kaiju tamer, at the mall, the friendly kaiju defending the land of men are fast asleep. They won't wake up even if the base is under siege. Tetsuo realizes they can't just fall back. If they don't crush Sagami's squad right here, right now, the mall is doomed. But taking down this overpowered horde? Yeah, easier said than done. The clock is ticking. Sagami smugly counts down to their doom. Tetsuo is sweating bullets, racking his brain for a strategy. He knows they are completely outmatched in raw firepower. So, he flips the script. To win, he doesn't need to destroy them, he needs to protect the mall. But why target the Mishima Mall in the first place? Lacking info, Tetsuo decides to play his absolute craziest card yet. He tells a stunned Yukio to open the comms. He's going to talk to them. A beautifully emotional flashback hits us, showing how Tetsuo, who used to lock his heart behind a steel fence, finally learned to connect with people like Ao and Izumi. Interacting with the survivors gave him something he never had in space, the courage to not fear others. For the first time on this frozen earth, he's stepping out of his shell. Sagami calls time, ready to deliver the final blow. But wait! Yukio abruptly raises a thumbs up, forming the letter T. The enemies pause, totally baffled. T for truce? Time out? Inside the cockpit, Tetsuo is literally shaking, hyperventilating, trying to hype himself up. He slams the speaker button and with the most awkward voice-cracking yell ever, demands to know, "Why would you do something like this?" The sheer absurdity of trying to negotiate in the middle of a death match leaves the hardened villains like Akagi and Uzuki and even Hagane standing in pure awkward silence. Absolute cringe-inducing silence. Yukio breaks the tension by cheering for Tetsuo like a proud dad, leaving Tetsuo dying of secondhand embarrassment. Surprisingly, Sagami decides to humor him. He drops a massive lore bomb. Their faction, Vierd, wants to save the world by killing the humanoid variant that caused the Great Freeze, which is still chilling in Tokyo. And to do that, they need to steal Ao's flaming kaiju. Tetsuo is left completely shell-shocked. With pure naive optimism, Tetsuo suggests, "Then let's team up!" Big mistake. Sagami's creepy smile twists into pure venom. He reveals his real dark motive. It's deeply personal. Sagami absolutely despises Tetsuo for hogging the savior spotlight while being, in his eyes, totally inadequate and pathetic. The eye patch-wearing commander screams for Tetsuo's death with pure hatred. Hagane realizes the tragic irony. Sagami built that steel fence around his heart specifically because of people like Tetsuo. Negotiations are officially dead. Hercules attacks brutally, tearing straight through Yukio's armor. In a desperate gamble, Tetsuo orders Yukio to open his particle tank, trying to figure out some insane way to block out their murderous intent. But the real damage here is mental. Tears stream down Tetsuo's face as the crushing reality hits him. He knows absolutely nothing about this frozen world, its politics, or its pain. He's just a clueless relic from the past. Checkmate. Hercules has Yukio completely pinned to the ice, and Sagami orders the execution. Tetsuo breaks down crying, realizing he's failed and the enemy is going to march right into the mall. Swallowing his pride, he screams, "Fly! Get away! Head to Mishima Mall!" Yukio hits the afterburners at maximum speed, blasting off like a rocket into the starry sky. Safety, right? Wrong. In a heart-stopping twist, Hercules is already up there waiting for them. The enemy completely downloaded their escape route. In this desperate moment, a haunting flashback plays. A scientist reminds Tetsuo of his only real value, his ability to kill kaiju. Through hysterical, broken tears, Tetsuo screams in agony, "But that's all I have to offer!" If he can't even defeat a kaiju, he's completely worthless. Sagami roars, "Die!" one last time, and Hercules brings the giant blade down for the final kill. Yukio's systems suddenly glitch out. In a bizarre move, he charges straight at the kaiju, but it's a fake out for a desperate escape, not a continuation of the fight. The kaiju still manages to land a brutal hit on them right before they break away, but Yukio keeps pushing forward, making a run for it despite the rough shape they're in. But the real casualty here is Tetsuo's spirit. Inside the battered cockpit, Tetsuo completely breaks down in a puddle of tears. The crushing weight of reality hits him. He curses his own stupidity, realizing his attempt at diplomacy was just blind arrogance. He cries out in self-hatred, admitting he's a moron who always ends up destroying everything he touches. He just wants to stop being himself. But Yukio refuses to let his pilot drown in self-pity. The intensely loyal AI takes manual control, overriding the system to drop a heavy truth bomb. He tells Tetsuo to stop blaming himself. The real problem? Yukio's own battered, outdated chassis. The robotic companion confesses a heartbreaking reality. His damaged hardware can't even process 10% of Tetsuo's actual god-tier piloting skills. He's holding Tetsuo back. In one of the most genuinely touching moments of the series, the giant machine's digital interface softens as Yukio reassures him, proving that their bond goes way beyond just metal and code. The emotional spotlight then shifts to Hagane. Stripped of her tough, battle-hardened exterior, she completely shatters, bursting into terrified tears. She confesses just how paralyzing the fear of death is and the absolute dread of losing everything they've built. She looks at Tetsuo with a mix of horror and profound respect, wondering how he managed to carry this suffocating, mind-breaking terror all alone in the dark void of space for 14 years. Seeing her hands shake violently, a quiet epiphany washes over Tetsuo. The agonizing isolation he endured, it wasn't pointless. It forged his mind into steel. For the first time, he understands the true value of his past suffering. Fueled by this emotional awakening, Yukio pushes his thrusters way past the red line, burning pure adrenaline to beat the kaiju horde to Mishima Mall. But just as they hit top speed, the system blares with a chilling alert. An encrypted transmission is coming through. The caller ID? Unknown. Tetsuo and Hagane freeze. In a frozen wasteland where human civilization has been completely wiped off the map, who the hell is making a phone call? Yukio frantically crunches the data to decipher the signal, and the translated message drops their jaws straight to the floor. Stay away. The kaiju have already arrived.